Today I have somebody who's really, created a big impact. He's studying at one of the world's leading B schools. That's the London Business School. So welcome to Globetrotting Conversations, Dhruv. Could you join us now?
Yeah, hi, how are you guys?
Hi, Dhruv. How are you doing there?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Wonderful. So Dhruv, very excited to have you on our channel today. Very excited to be, for you to be part of Globetrotting Conversations. So let me start off with, the most simple question I can probably ask you. You studied engineering from NMIMS. So how soon did you start considering, a career abroad, a management course abroad? When was it in your journey of undergrad education that you started to think about studying abroad?
So that's actually an interesting question. For me, I was hell-bent on going abroad to study for only the proactive education that you get abroad, which it really lacks in India. So it was just a matter of whether I go for undergrad or for the postgrad. I realized during my, you can say, preparations for JEE and all of this, that it makes sense to go for the postgrad primarily because the impact it has on your career.
Right.
So I took an undergrad admission in engineering, and you can say probably the first after the first year is when I started working on my application towards LBS. Basically, uh, pursuing extracurriculars which would matter, doing social service which would have an impact, trying to work on my leadership skills which would transition into leadership roles in the future. So that is entirely how I shaped my career, knowing that my target was LBS since probably the second year of engineering. And yeah, that's how I've been on it. And I had a startup in my undergrad, and during that time, I realized the importance of management. I was from a CSE background. So for me, it was like, okay, I can handle a startup. And that's when I realized, okay, I need to know finance, I need to know strategy, I need to know marketing. And towards probably third year, I realized, okay, management it is. I have to know this in case I want to become a CEO in the future. I got to know management despite knowing my CSE background or something.
Right. So, I mean, very interesting thing you point out, and if and all our live viewers, I'm sure I think the message is loud and clear. If you're aiming for one of the Ivy League schools, LBS being one of the four, one of the main ones there, start thinking early. Start thinking as early as your first or second years, because I think if you're looking to build your profile that suits one of the top B schools across the world, then you need to put in at least 2-3 years of work on it. And very good point there, Dhruv. Okay, so when you were applying, besides LBS, did you consider any other options, and how'd you go about picking which schools to go to? Because LBS seems to be an obvious choice. It was, as you mentioned, your dream school, but when you keep LBS aside, any of the other schools, were you worried about geography? Were you worried about any other parameters? And specifically, what were your needs that helped you sort of segment these schools?
So first, I'll answer your question about B schools and then look into geography. So for me, first I'll actually answer the geography bit, which actually inclined me towards the B schools. So for me, the geography was important, and the prime reason I chose Europe as the continent I want to start studying in was because of the cultural diversity, probably 100 kilometers away from a city, right? And London was my prime center, like first option, because London is the most diverse city in the world. Probably it has like hundreds of nationalities out there. And London was my first choice, with Barcelona being the second choice because it's a startup capital, again, really diverse. And I had learned from my peers and mentors that no matter which B school you go, it's diversity and cultural awareness that helps you grow more than the education that B school provides. And hence, I was really inclined to Europe just because of the diversity and fulfilling all my needs, which is get into startups later on. And then once I knew my geography is fixed over there, uh, I was looking into B schools. Like I said, my dream school was LBS since day one, but it would be naive if I didn't actually consider plan B and plan C. So I applied to LBS in my first round itself. And meanwhile, while waiting for interview calls, I was just filling my application, not yet submitted, but I had my plan B as ISADE because it's in Barcelona, again, a startup hub, and HEC, which is widely considered one of the best schools again has a good brand name. I was like, okay, that's the second school I want to go, third school I want to go to. So I was working on these two applications, and LBS just dropped an email on Diwali 2018. I clearly remember this, and they were like, okay, you've been selected for an interview, and that's when I was like, okay, you know what? Rather than finishing my application, making it extremely perfect, I'll rather focus on nailing LBS. And I'm one of those guys who can proudly say I applied to one school and got into that dream school. But I had a plan B and plan C, honestly.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you're one of those lucky ones, as you're rightly saying. But I'm sure 28th of 2008 was a very happy Diwali.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so you mentioned that entrepreneurship was always on your mind, and that you had a startup going even as your course as your undergraduate program was going on, you had a startup that you were working on. Is that the reason why you chose the global MIM, or and which other programs did you consider? Because clearly you seem to have entrepreneurship, and you know the cities you chose were clearly centering around being hubs of entrepreneurship. So, what other programs slash specializations did you choose? And did you even consider at any point to study just a general MIM, or was it always a specialization that you had in mind?
So I'll be honest. I have a family business which is in manufacturing, and at least in 2018, 2019, pre-COVID, China was considered the manufacturing hub, the most efficient country when it comes to all of this. And I had the back of my head that in case I want to grow my family business and see where it goes, and also China has a really good startup ecosystem also. So knowing that one day I might have to come back to a manufacturing family business, I was like, okay, why not just learn from the best B school in China as well, which is Fudan. It is considered the IITs out there, basically. Millions of people give an exam to get in. So HEC was the reason why HEC was on my list as well, and SRA on my list, and LBS was because all three offered dual degrees as well. LBS had GMiM, which is it's a dual degree, which was 1 year in LBS, second at Fudan. ISADE had something similar, dual degrees as well, and HEC also had a dual degree. I don't remember the university in China, but I think it was Peking or Fudan. I don't remember, but it was one of these. So I had a strong focus, which was get 2 years because I thought 1 year was really fast and quick. So 2 years, 1 year to get in, and second year to figure things out. So that's where I was with my program. But I was hell bent on 2 years, 1 year of which has to be in China.
Perfect, perfect. I think that very neatly fits in with the general thought that if you come from a non-management background, then a 1 year MIM would probably give you the basic grounding in management, but wouldn't give you the specialization that you need to sort of excel at the workplace, right? And so anybody listening in, I think the dual MIM as dual degree, as Dhruva's pointed out, is probably an option you should definitely look out. Uh, and there are very, very exciting, combinations that are available irrespective of the field. So Dhruv, obviously, you had at the back of your mind somewhere manufacturing and so on and so forth. But obviously, there are other schools within Europe where you could sort of do a second degree. Doesn't just, and my thought here would be, Dhruv, and I'm going to come to my question here, is that a dual degree inherently also comes with that advantage of you getting exposure of multiple nationalities at two different colleges, but also getting to work on probably live projects and probably internships if that's indeed possible within a year. At least those also in two different places. So it's double the fun, it's double the energy, it's double the interaction, in the same program. Right? So your comments on that?
Yes, so I think you point out two really important points, which was first one was diversity. Um, diversity has played a key role into making me what I am today. I can proudly say I have friends in each time zone, uh, consultants in each time zone. Probably, I know people in the military in each time zone. I can be that honest. That's how diverse my uh, cohort was at LBS. So out there, it was more like 57 nationalities spread across 54 or something nationalities spread across 275 people. That's like 1 in 6 or 1 in 5 person is from a different nationality. And it
Broad.
was just an eye opener for me. Like it burst that entire bubble about how small the world can be. But out there, I realized in one campus how big the world can be. It was as good as that. So I think diversity played a key role into my learnings and cultural learnings. I can so much so say I know things learned from my friends, cohorts, which I think Wikipedia wouldn't know, because those things are probably personal feelings and personal stories which nobody knows. It's just them conveying stories about how their country has progressed, how their cultures have progressed. And at the same time, when you look at it as the third point which I was going to say was about networking. When you look at the network that you create, it is massive. For me, China was that point of it, because it is such a close country. The only way to create a network inside it was by going there and studying, not by going and doing some business transaction. That's a small network you create. Once you go there, study, you create a bigger network. So that was the entire reason why China was always at the back of my head, because even at LBS, I created a network worldwide. But again, I thought I lacked somewhere when it came to creating a network within China. And at this point of time, I was so widely considering doing the business of exports, primarily because my connections are all over the world and we are probably one of the highest exporters. So it was just at the back of my head, why not leverage these contacts that you've made? So yeah, B School helps a lot in terms of networking as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Fabulous point you make there about networking. I think that's, one of the biggest things that you want to take away from a B school, obviously, besides your grounding in management, principles of management, and learning from pretty much the best faculties available across the globe. But I guess a big part of your learning comes from your peer network. And you professed yourself that you're at heart an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
so I'm sure, I mean, there was a great experience for you. Which you mentioned China. So for the benefit of our viewers, we'd like to know. So you're in the middle of your global MIN, right? And we're in the middle of this global pandemic where travel is almost on a freeze, and people are, in fact, very very fearful of traveling, if I could say that. So what are your plans in terms of tackling this? How have you tackled it thus far? How's been
Yeah. I think first I'll probably let the viewers know the difference between the MIM and the GMIM, because
Absolutely,
that's what
absolutely.
people get confused over. So the GMIM is so let's take the MIM for example. The MIM has 275 students, out of which 38 students are in the GMIM. So the 275 students are distributed into 93 streams.
Right.
And out of those 90, each 13 students from the GMIM are already present. So the first year of the GMIM is as good as the MIM. Everything's the same. It's not that the 38 students are learning separately.
Right.
The 38 students are among the 275 learning as an entire cohort. And it's
Wonderful.
only the second year, which is this 38 selective students, which are actually experiencing the entire second year at Fudan. And that's what the GMIM is about. So we had completed our the first year of the MIM at LBS, and second year, we had multiple options to choose from. Given that the pandemic came in, we had options: either we defer it to the following year or take it up online. And because I honestly want to be inside a country and learning from the faculty and creating a network, you understand, like virtually when you're studying, it's very difficult to create a network. But once
Absolutely.
you're physically studying, that's when the network is created. So for me, it was more about going there and studying. That's when I was decided that, okay, I'll take this year as a gap year and deferred it to September 2021. Meanwhile, right now, I'm working on a startup. I've founded a startup which is focusing on the nightlife industry in India and learning for the CFA side by side. So if this works out, probably I will not have to go to China. But if it doesn't work out, I already have a plan B for September 2021.
It actually does seem like you have plenty on your plate for now. If it's CFA and a startup, I mean, I'm sure each of those could serve as a full-time sort of backup plan. So kudos on that, and all the best with your startup plan. Um, so you mentioned, I mean, in the course of this conversation, we seem to be hovering around the COVID, and uh, I have to ask this, for our viewers who are considering applying in this cycle. I'm sure some of our live viewers are thinking of, right now we're sitting in the month of almost September is upon us. Is it a good idea to be applying to, London or Europe or some of the European B schools at this point in time? Because as we speak, the COVID is still raging. I know that most countries, it seems to be sort of coming down. The effect of it is coming down. Countries are opening up, so are industries. But what's your view on that? And is it still a good time to be applying for a 1 year, 2 year program in management abroad?
So if you ask me, should students be studying in the UK? That's one side of it. And the second side is if this admission cycle is the best type of it.
Right.
So first I'll take the admission cycle bit. So I was just having a conversation with a couple of my friends, and because I was a academic rep at LBS as well,
Right.
so I know some ins and outs about how things were going on and how applications were coming in, number of applications. So the thing was, when the pandemic struck, people chose to not apply, right? Even though their applications were ready, they chose not to apply because nobody knew what will happen. So if you consider the March, April, May, June cycle.
Just to cite clarification here, when you say apply, you mean apply for a job or apply for an internship?
No. I meant like apply to any university.
Okay.
So to any university, the people who were applying for the September 2020 intake,
right.
There were cycles, European cycles, which are
Correct.
around
Still
April,
works.
May, June as well.
Right.
So there were people who chose not to apply, knowing the unprecedented circumstances, and didn't know what is going to happen. They were like, okay, we'll take this year off and apply next year. So there is this set of students who have already prepared their application and ready to apply in the next round.
Correct.
Then at the same time, there are students who deferred their admission to the next year already. That is September 2021.
Right.
So the number of seats are already, the deferred people have taken over these number of seats, certain number of seats. I can tell you LBS hasn't deferred anybody, so we are good on that space. But so there are people who've deferred and the number of seats have reduced. And because of which the people who are already prepared are ready to maximize it by putting in their applications now.
Correct.
So what I would say is, if you can if you think your application is top notch and perfect, if your application is top notch and perfect, if your application is top notch and perfect, you should definitely go in and apply. But if you think there is a little bit here and there with your application and everything, I would strongly recommend maximize this 1 year by doing internships, by learning new skills, by being that one person. If you're in India, like being that, because so many Indians apply, being that Indian who is really different from other Indians, because thousands apply. You have to distinguish yourself. So if you can maximize this time by being different, then go ahead and do that, because now it's going to be a really tough fight to get in. So use this 1 year to maximize that. And if you had to tell me if I want to study if someone should study in the UK, trust me, now with the 1+2 system that the UK has brought in, it is the best time to be in the UK. Because during my time, I had one year plus 4 or 5 months as a visa, and now you have 2 years of visa, which helps with companies that actually don't sponsor, and it just puts you in a better place to be placed for jobs once you get out. And with Brexit coming in as well, potentially, unless there's a different deal signed between EU and Britain, potentially you'll be at the same level as any other European while applying for jobs, and that just gives you a better benefit again. So there are multiple factors which I think will just say that you should be in the UK and starting at this point.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you bring in this interesting point about looking at the number of deferments that happen across schools. I think that's a very valid point. I think even in Ivy League schools in the US, I think there's a similar trend where a lot of people are deferring their start of their program, maybe start of their second years, and so that at one end there is this huge pressure on the number of applications, right? But I guess there's also this other trend, competing trend, which would say that even people who are considering applying for the cycle right now are thinking of probably postponing that decision, because even as we speak, I think the situation could sort of, it could sort of worsen in the next month or so. So, but yes, I think your point still stands valid. Apply only if you're prepared, only if you have a strong application, only if you believe that you can, create that impact. So spot on. Well, you did touch upon studying in the UK, and in today's scenario, I think it would be remiss if I didn't ask you anything about the Brexit. So how do you think that sort of, in this whole potpourri of confusion about deferments and the COVID playing out, does Brexit ease it up, or do you think it makes it better for a candidate applying to the UK?
If the candidate is from India, so my
Absolutely.
entire hypothesis with my friends from LBS is that it honestly depends on the deal that EU and Britain make during the Brexit. But
Sure.
provided as things stand right now, which is no deal Brexit, it will put the additional freedom that EU had, which is they didn't need much of sponsorship, they didn't have much of Tier 4 sponsorship problems, and they didn't have any problems related to sponsorship and visas and all. And that is something which we faced. And when we go and apply there, those guys, we were clearly in the spot where we would have to distinguish ourselves from any other individual out there. So if things stand as it is, I think people from EU and people from China, India, Africa, all these countries which require sponsorship will be at the same level while applying for jobs,
Right.
and which will give you a benefit compared to what your predecessors from the same countries had, because we were a little distinguished on that zone. So now you're at least competing at the same level for the same jobs, and everybody's fighting for sponsorship then. So it's just now all about quality and no longer the reason of, okay, sponsorship nahi denge types.
Mhm. Okay, interesting. So, at one end is the COVID and the lockdowns, which sort of make it less attractive, probably, or make it harder in one sense. But at the other end is this whole situation playing out where, Indians are probably, and then again, there's an outside chance that it might not happen, but it might just be favorable for an Indian looking for management roles in the UK. All right, that's thanks for throwing light on that, giving us your perspective on that. Okay, moving on to a different sort of line of questioning. Maybe you could tell us more, more about your course itself. The Global MIM, and I'm sure you did tell us that it's called the GMIM, and it has 1 year along with the MIM, and then you split out. But could you tell us a little more about why what exactly would be the core areas that would be the focus areas in your second year?
So in the second year, so I'll just touch on the second year or the first year.
As you please.
Okay.
Maybe both.
So I'll just brief you through the first year probably.
Right.
So like I've been mentioning multiple times, diversity, teamwork. LBS strongly believes in cultural diversity, learning through cultures, and teamwork. So initially we are put up in groups for each semester. The first study group that you have is of 6 people, out of which 3 are men, 3 are women, basically 3 men, 3 women, and all 6 are usually from different nationalities, and almost all 6 have a different undergrad background. So you learn so much from your peers just working on the smallest of projects. And yeah, that's how we went about the first term, and we had some really amazing core subjects, and LBS did a brilliant job in bringing together these teams. We had a field day wherein we were doing rope climbing as a team. We were doing flying fox as a team. We were building a raft together as a team. We were having boat races as a team. So it was
Did
all
you
about connecting with your team. So
did you
first
have
day
to
when
fly
when
your
we
sorry for coming in with a lighter note, but did you have to fly your aircraft once you once you put that together?
no, we were building a raft, not an
All right,
aircraft.
all right,
A
all right,
raft.
all right.
So
Okay.
we did have to sit on that and try sailing that. So
Make sure that it
it
is
was
safe
fine.
ready.
Yeah. So honestly, that day made me realize how important relationships are in general, because the day started off with us not knowing each other, 6 of us not knowing each other, the 6 people in the team, and the day ended with 6 of us becoming best friends.
Right.
So they really focused on psychological skills like teamwork, how do you raise spirits, how do you keep the team going. So that was more about first term, second term, and then the third term was all about electives. So
Right.
we had like 40 electives to choose from, which was negotiation and bargaining. We had family business on entrepreneurship. We had new venture development, startup success. We had amazing loads of electives to choose from. You get to choose 3. And that's how you're done with your term at LBS. This is just like an overview. If I had to go into parties and all, that's another level. But that's one level. That's another thing about LBS. And then we had China. So for China, it is you have 3 core subjects and 3 electives for the entire 1 year, because the entire 1 year is shaped around networking, and you have a thesis to write, surprisingly, in China.
Oh,
Oh, and also fun fact, LBS doesn't have a thesis to write. So that's one of the only master's degree without a thesis in UK itself. So that's a really good thing. But instead of that, you have a live consulting project with a company, and you gotta that's your thesis, that's sort of your thesis. Basically, you're
yeah,
consulting a team out there.
yeah.
So that's what replaces the thesis. So that was amazing. And in China, we have 3 core, 3 elective, 6 subjects to work with. And that usually people finish in the first 6 months, and then the next 6 months people are working on the thesis, traveling, networking, and it's more about building your groundwork there. And both the year in China and the year in London have something known as a gift, which is the global immersion field trip.
Mm-hmm.
And in this you go to like in London, you have the option of selecting a destination, which is they have options like Tel Aviv, which is in Israel. You have Silicon Valley, which is in US. You have Cape Town, South Africa. You have Kathmandu, Nepal, and you have Colombia, Medellin in Colombia. So
Okay.
you get to go to these places for a project or company visits, and you learn firsthand in the projects out there or at the company visits. So I had gone to Silicon Valley, and even though I was in Silicon Valley just 3 months prior, I yet chose to go there primarily because the professor was a Forbes was one of Forbes most innovative individuals in 2008 or something. So I
Right.
was like, let's just go for the professor, and it was worth it.
Yeah.
Like amazing. And you get to network with LBS alums which are in Silicon Valley as well.
Absolutely.
So we met, like I made buddies in Facebook and Tesla just by going on this field trip.
Absolutely. That sounds like loads of fun. That sounds like loads of fun rolled along with work. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolute perfect package, I should think. Okay, I'm going to roll back the clock a little bit and again, maybe ask you a little bit about the application process. In fact, one of our live viewers asked this question I'm going to lead with. How early, did you start, for your preparing for your GMAT, and how long did you take for the GMAT? And maybe you could start off with that. Tell us more about that.
So I followed this simple process which worked for me. and I got it from the GMAT club website. So I just was like, let's try it off. So the method I used was, I first gave a mock without studying, without knowing the G of GMAT. I didn't know the format, nothing. So I gave a first mock online, which is through the GMAT website. I gave the first mock and I scored a 600 on my first mock itself. So I knew where I stand before any knowledge about GMAT. Then what I did was my math was, I think so, 50 on 51, the score rating or something. So I knew my math is really strong, and I was like, okay, I have to focus on verbals. So primarily use YouTube, and I used the GMAT books, and some I use GMAT club forum to check out papers, and I just constantly was solving papers just to ensure my verbal is getting at par. Then 1 month into it, with half studying, I gave another mock, and I saw, okay, with low key studying, I'm at 650. So I knew I had made an improvement. I knew I was somewhere better than I started off. And then I knew that if I have to step it up to a point that I am capable of applying to any B school, I had to work even harder. And that's when I gave my maximum for 15 days. And I was clocking 720 on the mocks, then 720, 690 to 720 range. And once I was getting consistently around that range, I was like, okay, time to book my date. Not kidding. I booked it literally 1 day before the GMAT exam, because dates were available like plenty. So I was like, why should I fix myself to a date where I have to work towards? Rather, I'll keep it flexible. Yeah, I kept it flexible. And once I knew I'm perfect, I'm capable of getting something, I went ahead with a date, which is like in 8 hours time I go to bed, like that type. And yeah, I scored a 700 after that in my GMAT. So it was a happy journey, I guess.
So how long was this journey of prep for you?
I think if you ask me how long was the journey in terms of proper efficient studying, I would put in 45 days. Okay. I'll be honest, 45 days. Yeah.
But how long from the day you took your first mock to the actual test?
That should be around 90 days or.
Okay, so around 3 months where you sort of you took a last 45 day where you really focused your all. Okay, fair enough. I think
like so much so I used to go to uni when I was in college. I wasn't paying attention to college lectures. I had the GMAT book in front of me and solving. And all my the thing was, my entire peer group out there was doing the same. So it wasn't like I was out of the bunch. So yeah, I'm just saying I put in my university time also into that only.
Absolutely. So you need to prioritize at some point in time. You need to prioritize and say, okay, what's important right now is to make my application a strong one, and a good GMAT score goes a long way towards that. But I think there's also this misconception, which I should thank you for clarifying, which is that you need to prepare and then start taking mocks, because that's absolutely hogwash, because you need to first acclimatize to the test. You need to figure out what the test is going to be like and then prepare accordingly, as opposed to the other way around. And I guess the second thing, and I'm going to take the liberty of sort of stating this, you could agree with me or not, is that most people seem to think that if you're applying to an Ivy League school outside, let's say LBS, and even, when you're thinking of applying for an MBA, you're thinking of the INSEADs and the MITs and the Harvards of the world. And the popular perception is that you need a 740 or 750, otherwise these schools don't give you a look in. And that's, again, I find myself telling people over and over again that it's not just the score, it's more of your profile, right? And so, here's my question to you. If indeed that is true, what do you think, really worked in your favor when you were applying to LBS? And part two, if somebody is applying to LBS right now, which part of the application does LBS put special emphasis on? Is it leadership skills, or is it being an all-rounder of sorts, or is it having a strong value system? So what are your views on that?
Yeah, I'll tell this I'll probably give examples and clearly define the story, because I completely agree with what you said. And so much so, my GPA was only a 3 out of 4. I'll just make that really clear.
Wow.
So that just gives you an example that marks really don't matter. So at least at LBS, because that's the only university I applied to.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I had a batchmate, and I won't take the names obviously, but batchmate at my undergrad. Probably he had done social service. He'd done, like, you can say, gone. He was leader of the student council, like presidents, like all council, all clubs, university council head. Had a 4 out of 4 GPA, university topper. Had a GMAT of 740,
Wow.
and he got rejected from LBS. So that just goes to show that. And he had internships at the top companies, Edelweiss, your L&T or Deloitte, top companies. So internships also perfect. And then I have a friend inside my LBS cohort who's at a 600 GMAT, but has a story to tell. So there is a lot of difference. So coming to this point was, your marks really don't matter. Uh, what matters is what you bring to the table, which nobody else does.
Right.
And it is your story and it is about you. So honestly, okay, fine. LBS will probably filter out 600 below 600 GMAT instant. Suppose it does do so. But beyond that, it is all about your application, your story. Because now you consider that friend of mine, my undergrad batchmate, everything was perfect. The only thing that can go imperfect is the application, which is his story. And if that story is not about teamwork, not about cultural diversity, if that story is not about your experiences, but it's about all about yourself, that I can do this, I can do that, I'm sorry, that won't work out in any professional environment, because you have to be really collaborative. So what I think applicants at this point should focus on is, okay, well and good if you can get a good GMAT score, crazy, that's perfect. But if you don't get the best of GMAT scores, that doesn't mean you can't apply to the top B schools. Because if you have a story to tell, if you have done things out of the blue, out of the basics, if you've done things which no mainstream Indian person is doing, I'm so sure you have a better chance than even a 760 GMAT and a 4 out of 4 GPA.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're going to inspire a lot of our people in our audience today, and more will watch later, because uh, I think there is this perception that it's all about scores, because we come from an Indian education system that really values scoring marks and clearing cutoffs and doing well on those kind of parameters, and very less sort of, at least we are not used to being in a process where things are looked at from a more holistic point of view. Right? So thanks
Agreed.
for that. Uh, and again, another follow up to this question about applications, because one other question that a lot of people end up asking me uh, is about London, just the city, because it's a very expensive city, and besides the tuition cost of the course, there is living expenses to sort of manage. So a lot of questions come up about are there scholarships available? What kind of aid is available at LBS? And how many people from this side of the world avail of such opportunities? And at the other end, if there is, if I can't avail of it, uh, can I fall back on part-time options to meet my expenses? And how is it that I manage my living costs then? So maybe you could throw some
Okay.
light on that.
Yeah, so I can touch on the living costs. I'll probably divide the living costs into 3 bits. One
Yeah.
is the tuition fees, then is your living expense, which is basically your housing. Probably I'll divide that into housing, and the third is work, like what you can potentially work for. So the first is the tuition fees. So LBS is 33,500 pounds around,
Yeah.
and there are scholarships available. Like for example, I know there's a Birla scholarship, which is for the MBAs at LBS. I think they sponsor around 5 to 6 MBAs or something around that zone. Then there is the One Young, One World scholarship, which surprisingly an Indian achieved this year, which is a complete scholarship on the master's studies. And then there are the minor scholarships, which are like 7,000, 9,000, 10,000 pounds, which LBS gives it to students based on need basis, or based on achievements, or based on what they bring to the table types. So it's all about you showing how uh, what you can do to the club, which to the community, LBS community, which someone else can't do, or probably to any university community. Let's remove LBS, but any university community that nobody else can bring to the table. So it's about that. So that's the tuition fees. I'm so sure when you work hard on your applications and when you tell your story, and if there are some points where you think you need a scholarship, they will consider that if you are up to their levels. So that's about the tuition fees.
How soon do you need to apply for these scholarships? Because again, that's something that I find most people miss out on. Start thinking about.
Surprisingly,
Sorry.
most of it is automated. So most of it is automated,
All
and
right.
there are some people who mail the universities telling that, okay, I may need a scholarship, but all of the every individual is automatically taken into consideration
Considered.
for a scholarship.
Okay.
But some may have a little leeway if they've mentioned it a couple of times via email or some sort of mechanism like that. So it's more about that. And then comes your housing expense. Well, housing can range from anywhere around 200, like you can say around one, it can go down to 150 as well, to all the way to 270 to 80 pounds a week. But I know very good housing systems which are at 150 pounds, 170 probably pounds a week. Like you have international student housing in London itself, it's at Portland Street. And uh, it's the only difference is at ISH, which is international student housing, you have to put in an entire application like you would put it into a university. They need a reason why you're there.
Yeah.
So it's again applying there and getting selected. I had a couple of friends go there. I applied as well, I'll be honest, but I got rejected. So yeah, so that's ISH. Then there is Indian YMCA, which is again really cheap. It has an maximum Indians are around there, and food is included if I'm not wrong. So it is another really cheap and good environment to be in, with good housing facilities, and they have their own table tennis arena and all of that. They have fancy stuff out there as well. So it's not that you're underpaying and not getting equally good facilities. There are good facilities around that zone. And then comes working hours. So when you go to most universities in the UK, you qualify as a full-time student when it's a full-time uh, degree. But even under a full-time degree, you are allowed to work 20 hours a week legally. So there are students who are trying at startups and getting through with the living expense with that. And there are students who are doing internships at other companies to get away with their living expense. And all in all, you have people who are doing internships primarily so that they can convert that into full-time jobs post their 1 year at university. So all in all, it is more about how much time you put in, how much effort you put in, and what is it you go to achieve, what is it you plan to go and achieve out there. So it's up to the individual, to be honest.
Right, interesting that. Okay, so I mean, I seem to be getting some queries about the admission process. In fact, I have somebody asking me about your engineering. Since you come from an engineering background, I think you can probably answer this. I'm not sure, but for an engineer, the question seems to be which is better in terms of prospects to do. I guess maybe we'd like your opinion about this. Should one somebody who's pursuing civil engineering be considering an MBA or an MS? And I know it's a question that you'll find very hard to answer, but I mean the question will try.
So I think as an engineer, it is important you get into the management field, provided you know for sure that you want to take a transition from engineering to management. Like today, it doesn't make sense for an engineer to get into management to only apply for engineering jobs later. It's a waste of money, time, and effort. So rather, once you're sure shot on that scale that, okay, I want to transition into consultancy, into IB, into some of those fields, it is the best time to apply. So if you have 3-4 years of experience already, you go in for the MBA. If you have no experience already, if you're just transitioning from undergrad to postgrad and you want to make an immediate transition, that's when you take in the masters in management or masters in finance sort of field. So it's more upon the individual going in. And there are times when I honestly, as an engineer, feel that engineers benefit in the application process because maximum BBA students or someone's applying to these courses, and you sort of fill the diversity quota out there. Who doesn't like having a really diverse crowd?
Right.
So that's when you benefit as an engineer. in this, but it is a lot of hard work because you don't know the F of finance or the A of accounting. So you go into a space where people are there only for the brand name or to just brush up their skills of the university, and you are actually there to learn while applying for jobs.
And
So
compete with
it
that.
is a tough task. Yeah, it is a tough task. I'll be honest about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, another question on similar lines, on actually a different tack here. Uh, does one stand a good chance of getting through the LBS admission process if college level extracurriculars are not very strong? What do you think? How would that affect somebody's chances?
It just comes back to my answer, which I gave you about how important things are on the application.
Yeah.
I think if your extracurriculars are not strong, I'm so sure you've got time right now to explore photography. How difficult is it? Start the photography page, start taking snaps, see if that's your passion. That can be your extracurricular. So there are options that you can easily get into to portray as your extracurriculars. But again, it is the story that you get to the table. If there is no story, if you are the most perfect of humans, if you don't have a story which your friends inside the college will learn, if there is no story, cultural story, or anything which others will understand and develop with, I'm sorry, you don't bring anything to the table, like except for your education, but everybody else is going to learn from professors already out there. So I think it is a lot about getting your story to be interesting, and I want to know more about you, and that's why I'm going to call you for an interview, like that sort of a story.
I think the major takeaway, and I remember you saying this sometime back, where you said that I think the individuality of your application is what is paramount, because the more personal and impactful and specific you can make it, and the more, I mean, I don't mean individuality in the sense of talking about you. We're talking about your story and making it as unique as possible and stand out as much as you can. Uh, so what you're trying to say is that if it's not extracurriculars, find a hook, but find a hook in your application that appeals to somebody who's evaluating it, and make sure that you do full justice to your story. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree on that, because today you're applying from the second most populated country in the world, man. And you're already applying from which has the youngest, probably the youngest age group. So that is an age group which is going to apply abroad as well. So how is it you differentiate yourself, man? If you have done engineering, if you've done internships, and if you're playing the guitar, I know 10,000 people similar to you. The only thing that differentiates you is your story.
Yeah.
So it is that factor which will always come into play. So your application really, really counts. At least at LBS, I'll make that again clear, because I know about LSE, for example, like friends at LSE, they need a perfect GMAT, they need a perfect GPA, they need a perfect GMAT or whatever. So that is another university. You got to look at universities as well. If it's a proactive and diverse university, this is what they look at for sure.
How much of an advantage is there to be, because you went through the early round at LBS. So how much of an advantage does a candidate get in, assuming that there is no significant change in his application? Is there an advantage to apply in the early round? And when you're applying in the later rounds, would you say that you're already at the back foot and things won't look so rosy?
So I think there are pros and cons to both. So the biggest pro of applying in the early rounds is that you get to know early whether you're rejected or not. So so if you're applying early and you get rejected, okay, you can shift, maneuver, and pivot to your plan B and C. You get it. But if you're applying everywhere towards the late rounds, God forbid, if you get 1-2 rejections, you don't have any more rounds to apply to. So it is really advised to plan your application process in such a way that you have phased it out, rather than just, okay, I want to apply everything in early and you messed up all applications. Give it your best in the early, like as soon as you're done with your application, you think it's perfect, go ahead and apply. I'm so sure that universities have different brackets. Okay, this round these many people, this round these many people, or something along those zones. But I'm so sure they don't look into the part where oh, he's come early, so we got to take him on board. It is more about if you match up to their standards, you're always going to get on board. So just get quick and get to the part. But at this point of time, if you were to ask during COVID right now, there are people who have their applications ready right now. In from March to June, who didn't apply, they have their applications ready. So there's a good chance these bunch of people have made their applications even more perfect and are going to apply in the early rounds. So you might want to consider that factor and probably take a second round step or something. So it's more about people playing the mind game with applications and seeing where they go. So for me, it was early just because I wanted to get a early acceptance and rejection so that I don't have to put more effort into like 10 more applications or 5 more applications. And I was really relieved that one shot, one done. Now let's finish it off. So yeah.
All right. Okay, I have one of our viewers is asking you a very personal question. He says, okay, I understand what you mean by make it unique, make it impactful, make it stand out, but I'm not really get a hang of this, right? So why don't you tell me what worked for you? Can you tell us how you believe you stood out in your application, and maybe highlight one or two instances that in specific? Could you do that?
For sure. That's a good question, actually. And I think that's a perfect consultancy question. So I see a consultant already in that person. But anyways,
Arun, if you're listening in, Venkatesh, if you're listening in, maybe you contact Dhruva for a job later on.
So yeah, let me just put in the basic mistake that someone does. And let's say I've done an internship at an XYZ company, and I say I overlooked the entire finances and was working with the VC fund. That's it. A better way to put that would be I brought in VC funding of 500,000 pounds, got in 20 more customers. You get it? You're quantifying things. You're letting them know what you've done through numbers. That is the basic first step anywhere. You have to tell them in quantifiable terms. You say that I have made an impact in the world, nobody's going to believe you. But if you tell them I have changed the lives of 5,000 people, people are going to be like, okay, tell me more. You get it? So it is more about quantifying your achievements. That's the first step. And what worked for me was I wouldn't boast or something, but I'll be honest about it. If you know about road track clubs and all, I was actually the president of one of those. And I took it on myself to, not just take it as a CV thing, but make an impact. So I adopted a couple of villages. I went about giving them free education every Sunday. I did a lot of things like sanitary napkins providing with medical camps, raising funds for them, raising funds for pediatric surgeries, and doing all of that. So that was the social aspect of it. Then came the entrepreneurship access, which I had, which was I had my own startup. So I had bought in like influencers, which had an average following of 80,000. I had an outreach of around 40 lakh people, revenues XYZ, and all of that. That was another side of it. Then came the leadership aspect, and which was leadership. I had leadership, like I said, as a president of Road Track, I had a leadership skill. As a founder of my startup, I had a leadership skill. And also I was part of student bodies, student councils, and I was again a chair or a co-chair or in those a chair like a director or somewhere along those lines. And apart from all of this, like all these three combined, I also had very good certifications, like you can say Trinity College London in communication skills in speech and drama. I was into drama, and I had a hobby of photography, which actually transitioned into monetary terms in my towards the last year. So I showed that as monetary as well. So I had a hobby which was there somewhere, and my other hobby, which is football, I played on a very good level as well. Then chess also played on a good level. So it is more about you showing a developed picture about you. And trust me, if I didn't have hobbies, there was a good chance I would be rejected yet. But the reason that I have hobbies and I can excel in them and I can do something in them as well, it just shows that this is an all-round picture we have with us. And my GPA was very low. My 12th grade exam was like 80% I had. So don't ever consider me as one of those people who is always on the books. But yes, that's why I said I started off early on. My first, second year of engineering, I knew where I want to be post-engineering. And I developed everything in those 4 years of engineering. And I can say that that worked out for me at least.
Amazing journey, amazingly well described. Because I guess if somebody's listening in, I think there's a lot of inspiration to draw in terms of thinking early. I think that's one thing that I'm really impressed about in your story, which is the fact that right from first year you knew, so you gave yourself a couple of years and more to build your personality and your profile, and then excel at the things, the 4 5 things that you chose, and spot on. I think if somebody's listening in and you're still thinking of this year or the next, I think try to create that kind of impact, but also learn to sort of present that well. And I think I'm sure LBS is also sort of impacted the way you present, because we were very crisp with those points and saying that, okay, let's know how to put it, know how to present what your achievements are, and learn how to be quantifiable. Right. So thanks a lot for that. Well, I guess that at least answers most of the questions that our viewers had. But I have a bit of a quirky question, if I may. So we've been talking about what was good about your application journey, about your positive experiences. Is there any one thing that took you by surprise, that maybe you're not so happy about, or feel so good about through this last year or so, study at NMIM? Any one thing that I won't say necessarily negative, but something that was opposed to your expectations. What would that one thing be?
Something that was not up to my expectations, right?
Absolutely. Or something that ran counter to the way you thought it would be. Like, I mean, I remember you.
I think one of which was the amount of time that I'll have. Firstly, okay, you might consider in a master's, you have, we had 3 core subjects working on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 hours each. And we had 4 days to ourselves to work with our teams, to work with our, friends, and figure whatever people are working on applications and everything. At this point of time, when I think about it, that time flew by and I didn't expect that. And those 4 days, which I had thought that would be completely relaxed and, I could chill out with friends, go explore London, and all of that didn't actually span out as I hoped to. And surprisingly, I had kept the term from March to June as the time when I'm going to explore London, when I'm going to be exploring Europe, visiting my friends and all of it. And guess what? COVID struck. And that actually screwed up my entire journey that I had planned for myself. And that is something I regret yet. Like, I think I had to seize more of the opportunity in exploring the city. Like, I honestly think if anybody's going right now to any city to study or something, education aside, just go and get the feel of the city as well. And I completely regret that. I'm getting goosebumps saying it, but I completely regret not. I explored London, I'll be honest, but I didn't do the secretive fun things that you would only a Londoner would know. Like, right. I cannot proudly say I know London at the tip of my fingers. I know every tube line, but I don't know everything happening there. So that's something I regret. And the other thing that didn't go up to my expectation was the weather. Like, the weather, oh boy, trust me, I'm from Bombay. I have witnessed rains. I have witnessed flooding. London, you don't witness flooding. London, you don't witness any of that. You witness rains with crazy wind speeds. I have broken 5 umbrellas there. I started off buying umbrellas which were at £10. First umbrella was worth that. After that, I'm like, okay, it's going to break irrespective. The most expensive umbrellas break. I started buying the £1 umbrellas, use and throw types, because it is so bad, the weather there. And, sun setting at 4 p.m., 3 p.m. I used to wake up at 12 p.m., have my lunch, and it's already night. So that played a big role into me being more efficient and all of that. But days are really small out there. So during your winter season, that's like from October to Jan, Feb. And yeah, that's something which I didn't expect for sure.
Interesting, interesting. I in fact, I also had the good fortune of being in London in the month of December. I was there for Christmas, and I completely understand what you mean. October to January, you mentioned the weather, and that was the weather I was there in, and it's hard, man. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, very interesting point to bring up. Not just about the weather, but also time at a B school, it literally does fly because you think that you'd have time to sort of, make friends and go around the city. But I'm yet to come across a single student who's pursued masters of management who says, I had loads of fun just partying and having fun, making friends and socializing around. No, well, honestly, all you find time to do is work and create, a strong profile for yourself because that's what counts.
No, I'll be honest out there that uh, I had the best time, like in parting in terms at LBS. Like we have sundowners every Thursday at LBS, and basically, there's a party at university. Like, trust me, those are MBAs, CEOs, and all of that. Okay, it's like it's another networking event. Like
Yeah,
college completely believes to bring the campus together. It's such a
yeah,
small community. It's
yeah.
like barely 400, 500 people.
Wow.
So every Thursday we used to have that, and then we had a Santa pub crawl when the entire LBS community, like top CEOs, I'm using the word, are dressed as Santas and roaming in London from one bar to the other. So I had a blast, but I knew how to make time for both. And at the same time, I had friends who were all into jobs, and they had all their interviews planned for March, April. And guess what? Boom, COVID. And yeah, they didn't have the opportunity to network as much as I could and make some friends which are like gonna last forever. So it's all about how you manage your time. And there's a saying, you can either find a job, study, or make friends. Any two of the three is possible. And I chose my two wisely. So it's upon people to choose their two.
Absolutely, absolutely. Those are great words to sort of bring this session to a close. Thanks a lot, my friend Dhruv. Thanks for coming on board today. This was as informative as it turned out to be. Fun and really thanks for taking our time from your schedule. I certainly hope we can continue this some other time, and I wish you the very best in the coming year with your startup and with your plans to get to China and explore your second half of the course. Yeah,
Got it.
thank
Got
you.
it. Thanks a lot. I'll see you around. And in case any of your viewers have any questions, they can feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn
Absolutely.
for sure.
Absolutely. So that's a big shout out to all our live viewers today. I mean, we continue. Globetrotters continues to bring really sharp, smart minds like Dhruva here, and I guess we are here to ensure that you get a platform where you can ask your very realistic queries and you get answers to those from the horse's mouth, so to say. But yes, but I think Dhruva is being very kind when he says, please drop in a note, and I think you guys should do that. I mean, if you have any specific queries to answer, you can redirect them to Dhruva. Alternatively, we at Globetrotters also, have a team of, we have the accumulated experience of having helped students get into management courses both in India and abroad. So do hit us with your queries. If you have, if you need a CV evaluation, if you need us to do a profile check for you, just hit us with your CV. In the description is, our email address. And our contact numbers. So in case you have anything specific to follow up with me or with Dhruva, then and make sure to reach out to us there. Well, it's been great. Thanks a lot. Have a great night, Dhruva. And once again, wishing all our viewers a very good night.
Good night.